Some love stories begin with a smile and end in tears, but some start in hell, only to find heaven among the ruins. This is the story of a pregnant woman abandoned in a storm, a man whose heart is consumed by darkness and revenge, and a child born in the midst of thunder to prove that love can still redeem everything. If you've ever believed that people can change, and that love is the final light that never fades, then join me in Heaven in Disguise, The Hell Within, a journey through justice, pain, and forgiveness. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Follow the 10-part series, where each episode touches a deeply human corner of your heart. Newport, Rhode Island. A December afternoon, the sky weighed down by a thick, metallic grey. The sea roared beyond the cliffs, waves crashing against the granite shore with a low, echoing sound like the ocean was sighing. The Ashfield mansion, a massive block of white stone clinging to the hillside, looked like a Victorian castle. But today, beneath sheets of rain and the whistling sea wind, its beauty felt hollow, stripped of warmth. It was as if the house was trying to swallow the last bit of heat from the woman standing inside. Janelle Carter-Ashfield. She stood at the grand staircase, one hand gripping the walnut banister, her rounded belly making every breath heavy, every step a battle between pain and resolve. Below, Blake, her husband, was busy instructing the staff to load the luggage into the car. A row of sleek suitcases lined the marble floor, each tagged with gleaming gold initials. Bachelor of Arts. The house filled with the sounds of rolling wheels, polished shoes on stone, and the laughter of the Ashfield family preparing for their long vacation. "Blake, please," Janelle pleaded, her voice trembling, both hands protecting her belly as if shielding the small life inside. The doctor said, "The baby might come early. Can't you postpone the trip a few weeks?" She smiled, hoping he would see the fear in her eyes. But Blake only adjusted his cufflinks, checking his reflection, running his hand through perfectly styled hair. The man in the mirror looked flawless, sleek, distant, untouchable. "We've been through this, Janelle." His tone was flat, cold, as if discussing the weather. "Mother planned this vacation all year. We're going to the Bahamas. Everything's booked. Don't be dramatic. Women give birth every day. You're not special." Janelle bit her lip, swallowing her tears. "I'm not afraid of giving birth. I'm afraid of doing it alone." He sighed and turned away, unwilling to hear more. Constance Ashfield, her mother-in-law, entered, her perfume cutting through the chill like a blade. Dressed in an immaculate white suit with a diamond brooch at her collar, she glanced at Janelle disdainfully. "Blake, don't be late. The limousine's waiting. And you," she paused, eyes narrowing. "You should learn independence. A mother who clings to others will raise a child as weak as herself." Laughter erupted from behind her. Graham, Blake's older brother, smirked. "Good Lord, sis-in-law, you're huge. You sure there's only one in there?" Then Adriana, Blake's sister, walked by with the poise of a movie star. "You should hire a trainer. Staying fit while pregnant isn't hard, just a little discipline." Janelle stayed still. Each word fell like metal sinking into water, cold, heavy, and final. She steadied herself, hand on her belly, seeking comfort in the baby's faint movement. But even the child seemed uneasy. Blake placed an envelope on the table, his voice detached. "There's cash in here. Buy whatever you need. And don't call me unless the house is on fire." He turned, took his mother's arm, and walked out. No goodbye, no glance back. The door shut, the car engine roared, then faded into silence. Janelle stood frozen. The air in the mansion thickened until it felt impossible to breathe. Slowly, she walked to the tall window and watched the line of cars winding down the hill, their red taillights vanishing into the fog like the final punctuation of a dying marriage. She whispered, voice breaking, "It's just you and me now, sweetheart. I'll try my best." But her words vanished into emptiness like wind echoing through a hollow cave. Rain poured harder. The first drops on the glass became streams. Lightning flashed across the sky. Inside, Janelle trembled not only from fear, but from the bone-deep ache of being utterly abandoned. She sank onto the sofa, swollen feet throbbing, hands cradling her belly. Her breath came fast, tears streaming silently. A deafening clap of thunder shook the windows. The lights flickered and went out. Darkness swallowed the house, broken only by white flashes slicing through the storm. She buried her face in her hands, whispering like a prayer. "Please, God, Don't let me be alone." Outside, in the rain-soaked garden, a figure stood motionless. Jerry Johnson, the Ashfields' gardener. He didn't move or speak, only watched through the glass as the woman wept. Lightning revealed his face-haunted eyes filled with old sorrow, and something deeper, something beyond pity. Night fell quickly. Newport was usually peaceful at dusk, but the wind howled through the trees like a warning tonight. Janelle lit candles around the living room. Their flickering glow cast her shadow against the wall. Bent, weary, she tried calling Blake. "The number you dialed is unreachable." Once, twice, 3 times. She called her mother-in-law, Graham, Adriana. Silence. Then she realized they had blocked her every single one of them. A faint sound came from the end of the hallway. Instinct made her turn. In the dim candlelight, she saw Jerry, soaked from head to toe, with mud on his boots. He bowed slightly, voice low and warm. "Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. I heard the thunder. Wanted to check if you were all right." She looked at him, startled. He was just the gardener, a quiet shadow in this grand estate. But tonight, standing at the door, he seemed to push the darkness back. I'm fine," she whispered, then broke down. "Actually, no, I'm not fine at all." Jerry stepped closer and gently set a flashlight on the table. The beam lit her face pale, tear-streaked, exhausted. He pulled up a chair, keeping a respectful distance. "I made some soup. You should eat. It's cold, and the rain won't stop." She blinked. "You cooked?" He smiled softly. "Gardening teaches you to fend for yourself. Cooking comes with it." She accepted the bowl. Steam rose, carrying the scent of celery and slow-cooked chicken. A tear slipped into the broth. She murmured, "I can't remember the last time someone cooked for me." Jerry looked down. Everyone deserves to be cared for at least once in their life. They sat quietly, the rain drumming above them. She spoke about her pregnancy, her fears of giving birth alone. Jerry listened, eyes fixed on her face, not pitying, just deeply understanding. When she finished, he said softly, "You only learn who you are when you've been left behind. You're learning that now. But remember, some people still see you, even when they aren't seen." A warmth spread through her chest. For the first time in months, she felt truly heard. She asked, "Aren't you afraid they'll find out you came? They hate me and probably treat you no better." Jerry smiled faintly. "People like them don't see anyone but themselves. I'm just a shadow in this house. And sometimes, it's safer to live in the dark than under their light." Janelle gazed out the window. The garden was flooded, wind thrashing the roses until their petals tore away. Her life, she thought, was just like those roses, beautiful once, fragile, crushed by storms. But then she noticed Jerry's hand resting on the table's edge, close, but not touching, just enough to let her feel his quiet presence. "I'll be nearby if you need anything," he said firmly. "No one should bring a child into this world alone." Janelle nodded, throat tight. "Thank you, Jerry." He shook his head. "No need. Sometimes kindness isn't a duty, it's instinct." A gust of wind snuffed out a candle. Darkness returned. She looked at him, his face now, just an outline in the lightning glow. Yet something in his gaze made her feel safe, as if amid the raging storm, she'd found shelter. When Jerry finally stood to leave, he paused at the door. "The storm will ease by morning," he said softly. "Try to rest. I'll tend the garden when it clears." She watched him enter the rain, his coat clinging to his back, his figure dissolving into the downpour. The door closed, but this time, the house didn't feel empty. Somewhere out there, in the storm, someone still cared if she was breathing, still believed she was worth protecting. Janelle placed a hand on her belly and whispered, "See that, baby? There are still good people in this world." Outside, Jerry stood among the drenched roses, watching the faint candlelight through the window. Rain lashed his face, but he didn't move. He looked at the woman inside the one clutching her belly in the flicker of light, and his chest tightened. And in the roar of the wind, he whispered a vow no one would hear. "This time, I won't let them kill again." That night, the rain still hadn't stopped. Jerry stood in the flooded garden, the faint light from the mansion glimmering through the curtain of raindrops before slowly fading as Janelle drifted into sleep. He didn't move, hands in his coat pockets, eyes fixed on the window where she rested her head beside the empty crib. She was fragile, yet carried a quiet strength that stirred something deep within him. A woman who had endured humiliation and heartbreak, but still managed to breathe, managed to smile as she spoke about the child she hadn't yet met. She reminded him of someone else, Marianne, his sister. Jerry turned away and walked toward the small house hidden behind the old iron fence. The place was barely larger than a storage shed, its tin roof rusted, the walls stained by salt and damp air. He hung his soaked raincoat, lit the gas stove, and poured himself a cup of coffee. The bitter aroma mixed with the scent of wet earth and sea salt, the familiar smell of solitude. On the wall hung an old photograph in a faded wooden frame. A young woman smiled brightly in the picture, Marianne Johnson, the girl who loved roses and once said, "Roses have thorns to remind us that beauty always knows how to defend itself." That line used to comfort him. Now, it has only reopened the wound. Jerry sat down, eyes tracing the photo, then reached for a worn notebook. Inside were yellowed pages clipped neatly together, bank statements, contracts, investment records. In the corner of one page, written in trembling handwriting, Ashfield Corporation, the day they took everything. He remembered it vividly, a crisp autumn morning. The smell of coffee still lingered when police and lawyers stormed their home. They seized everything, the company, the house his father had spent a lifetime building. The reason? Tax fraud and financial misconduct. But the real criminals were the Ashfields, the powerful conglomerate that shifted its crimes onto his father's small firm. His father suffered a heart attack that same day. His mother locked herself in her room and never came out again. And Marianne, the girl who once filled their porch with roses, lost everything overnight. She disappeared for days, until they found her by the harbor, cold and lifeless in the fog. Jerry had stood on that dock, watching as they pulled her body from the water, his soul hollowed out. He remembered the feeling like the world had ended, but he was still forced to breathe. At her funeral, he made a vow. They will pay. In a way, they'll never see coming. He disappeared for years. No family, no friends, just endless highways, sleeping in trucks, canned food, and borrowed time. He learned to invest and taught himself through public libraries. People called him eccentric, but no one knew he was quietly rebuilding an empire made of intellect and vengeance. Every dollar he earned went into buying shares, weaving through financial systems under layers of false identities. He became the invisible hand of Wall Street, an unseen power moving in silence. Then one day, the name Ashfield appeared again, shining, thriving, built on the ruins of others. That was when he knew it was time to return. But Jerry didn't want blood. He wanted justice, the kind that made the guilty watch everything they loved crumble, piece by piece, just as they had done to his family. He returned to Newport under a new name, a simple job, the gardener. No one questioned it. No one noticed. That title gave him access to their home, their world, and the faces of the people who had destroyed his life. He thought he was ready for scorn, loneliness, and revenge until he met Janelle. She appeared like a soft flicker of light, not blinding, but enough to disturb his darkness. A young woman from humble roots, trapped in the gilded cage of the Ashfields, treated like an accessory to their name. He remembered watching her at a family dinner, smiling politely as they mocked her. She doesn't belong here, he thought. From that day, he began to notice her. He trimmed the garden earlier to overhear her doctor phone calls. He learned she preferred tulips over roses, though the house was filled with the latter, Constance's symbol of vanity. He noticed she barely ate and took quiet walks alone near dusk. He saw her pain, and maybe, for the first time in years, he felt something beyond anger, a need to protect. When he saw her left behind in the storm, something inside him ignited that night. Not rage, but something gentler and more painful. For the first time since Marianne's death, his thoughts weren't about revenge. They were about saving someone. He looked at Marianne's photo and whispered, "I'm still paying the price, Mari. But maybe I'm learning to love again through someone else." Outside, the rain softened. The last surviving red rose stood tall on the windowsill, its leaves torn, but its scent still pure. Jerry plucked it gently, placed it in a glass jar, and looked toward the Ashfield mansion. One small light still glowed where she slept. The next morning, Newport felt reborn after the storm. The air was clean, the sky pale blue, though the wind remained cold. Jerry rose early, brewed coffee, and went out to the garden. Leaves littered the paths, and branches drooped under the weight of rain. He began pruning the rose bushes. From afar, Janelle stood on the balcony, wrapped in a thick shawl, her face pale from a sleepless night. She saw Jerry kneeling among the roses, working quietly, and realized, for the first time in months, that someone had stayed. She walked down the steps, her voice soft and hoarse. "Good morning." Jerry looked up and smiled. "Morning. Did you sleep at all last night?" "A little. And thank you for the soup." He nodded lightly, returning to his work. Roses need pruning at the right time. Otherwise they rot. People are the same. Some pain needs to be cut away before it spreads too deep. Janelle gave a faint smile. "You always sound philosophical." "Not really. I know what it's like to rot from the inside." She fell silent, then sat on the steps. "I don't know where to start, Jerry." He looked at her gently. "Start small. Eat breakfast. Take a walk. Talk to someone. It's the small things that save you, not miracles." She saw him differently for a moment, not as the quiet gardener, but as a man who had known profound loss. His eyes held sadness, but also a strength that steadied her. "Did you lose someone?" she asked quietly. Jerry paused, the shears still in his hand. "I lost my whole world. How did you get through it?" He gave a faint, sad smile. "I didn't. I just learned to live alongside the pain." The wind carried the scent of rain-soaked roses. Janelle looked out toward the sea, vast and grey, and for the first time, the loneliness felt bearable. Jerry stood, setting down his shears, and looked at her. "Janelle, I know I'm just the gardener to them, but I'm right behind the property if you ever need someone to talk to or a ride to the hospital. Don't hesitate." She nodded, voice tight. "Thank you, Jerry. Truly." He smiled quietly and went back to work. As she turned to leave, she noticed something in his hand, a small worn pendant, engraved with the initials MJ. She didn't ask. She knew the man among the roses, the one whose eyes held storms and silence, was guarding something she couldn't yet name. And as Jerry bent down to prune another rosebush, his gaze lingered on the old cracks in the wall. He murmured under his breath, "She's not like them, Marianne. She's not like them." From afar, the sea sighed against the cliffs, blending with the soft snip of his shears. The morning sun rose slowly, pale and golden, a quiet promise of peace. In that garden, between two broken souls with different pasts, something unseen began to take shape, fragile, tentative, but strong enough to pull two shattered hearts closer together. Monday morning, Newport lay under a thin veil of mist, the sea breeze carrying the scent of salt and damp wood. Janelle sat by the wide window inside the Ashfield mansion, looking out into the garden. The rain had stopped, but puddles still shimmered on the ground. Battered by the storm, the rose bushes leaned slightly, petals, torn yet radiant under the pale morning Sunday. She placed a hand on her belly, gently stroking. The baby stirred, a soft flutter under her palm. "We made it through the night, little one," she whispered. She hadn't slept much, but the rest she got was deep. No nightmares, no jolting awake. Maybe it was because of that warm, steady voice, the voice of the one man who hadn't turned away. She rose slowly and went downstairs. Then she stopped short. On the kitchen table sat a breakfast tray, steaming oatmeal, a glass of warm milk, and a few slices of apple cut neatly into thin pieces. No one worked in the mansion when the owners were gone. All the staff had been given time off. Only one person could have done this. Beside the tray lay a small note, the handwriting rough but firm. "Eat, don't stay hungry. JJ." Janelle smiled, a soft, fleeting smile, like an exhale. She ate each spoonful slowly, warmth spreading through her not just from the food, but from the thought that someone had remembered her. That day, she felt stronger. She walked through the garden, breathing in the mingled scent of roses and damp earth. Jerry was there, kneeling among the shrubs, trimming the branches broken by the wind. When he looked up and saw her, sweat glistened on his forehead. His brief smile cut through the morning haze like sunlight through fog. "Good morning," she said. "Up early again?" she teased. "A gardener's job is to rise before the sun," he replied, slipping his shears into his pocket as he stood. She looked around. The garden was spotless, the fallen leaves raked into tidy piles. "You did all this yourself?" Jerry nodded. "The storm was rough. I couldn't stand seeing everything broken and no one caring." She paused, then said softly, "Thank you. The garden looks beautiful again." He met her eyes, voice gentle. "Most people admire roses when they bloom. I think they're most beautiful when they survive the storm." The words made her heart tremble slightly. She knew he wasn't just talking about flowers. In the days that followed, Each morning brought a new breakfast tray. At noon, a small vase of fresh flowers appeared on the table. The hallway lights were already on at night, as if someone wanted to ensure she wouldn't be startled in the dark. No one spoke of it, no one took credit, but Janelle knew it was always him. One afternoon, she went out earlier than usual, wanting to thank him. He was kneeling by the trellis, grey t-shirt streaked with soil, his rough hands carefully settling the roots of a new plant. "I didn't know you had so much free time," she said lightly. He smiled without looking up. "They say working with the earth brings peace. And does it? Depends. Some hearts are too full of unspoken things." She watched his hands, strong yet precise. "Do you garden because you love it?" Jerry paused, gaze drifting into the distance. "Partly, and partly because I owe it to someone who taught me to love flowers." "Who was that?" "My sister. She believed that no matter how cruel life gets, flowers still bloom, it's just that people stop noticing." Janelle lowered her eyes. "She's gone, isn't she?" He nodded once. "A long time ago." She didn't ask more. They worked in silence, the rhythm of snipping stems blending with the faraway sound of waves. He was still there when she finally went inside, watching her go. A faint smile ghosted his lips, one he didn't even realize was there. That night, Janelle wrote in her journal, "Today, someone placed a vase of yellow tulips in my room. I never told anyone I liked tulips. But somehow, he knew." The following week, Newport grew warmer. Janelle began each morning by opening the windows, breathing in the scent of roses, and watching Jerry work below. She didn't know when it started, but the sound of his shovel and the soft snip of his shears became a comfort. That afternoon, she decided to walk into the garden. Jerry turned off the hose when he saw her. "Careful, the ground's still slippery." "It's all right," she said, her breath uneven. "I need a little exercise." They walked along the narrow path between two rows of roses. Dewy petals brushed her fingertips, soft and cool. "How long have you been tending this garden?" she asked. 3 years, he said. "Long enough to know every plant has its own personality." "Like people?" "Not that different. Plants know who cares for them, and who only pretends." She laughed. "Then the roses must really like you." He shrugged. "I just give them what they need, not what I want." Something in that simple reply tightened her chest. How long had it been since anyone did something for her out of care, not obligation or control? When she returned to the house, she stopped short. The cracked wall near her room had been repainted, and a wooden frame carved with tulips now hung neatly above it. She didn't have to ask who did it. That evening, she brought out a small plate of apple pie she'd baked herself. Jerry was packing up his tools when she approached. "I thought you might want a proper dinner." He raised an eyebrow, smiling faintly. "You made this?" "Apple pie. From an online recipe. It might be a little burnt." He took a bite and chuckled. "It is, but it's good, because the person who made it thought about someone else." Janelle laughed, a bright, effortless sound that made him pause. How long had it been since he'd heard a woman laugh like that, real and unguarded? The candlelight from the balcony above bathed her face in gold. Jerry looked at her, then quickly turned away. He knew he was crossing into dangerous ground, the kind where kindness could too easily become something more profound. After a long silence, Janelle spoke softly. "You know, ever since you came around, this house feels alive again. I'm not afraid of the dark anymore." Jerry looked down, voice low. "Don't thank me too soon." "Why not?" "Because some people only come into our lives to help us heal, and then they disappear once we're whole again." She studied him for a long moment. "And I'd like to believe some people stay." He couldn't answer. The wind stirred, tilting the candle flame. For a brief second, he wished he could freeze time, two quiet souls in a garden, the sea murmuring beyond, roses breathing in the night air. Janelle stood, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'll leave the kitchen door unlocked. If you're hungry tomorrow, help yourself to some pie. Don't be shy." He watched her climb the steps until she vanished into the house. Then he turned and walked back to his small home. As he passed the garden, he glanced up at her window. The light was still on. Inside his room, the photo of Marianne sat beside a freshly picked yellow tulip. He placed it gently in a jar and murmured, "You were right, Mari. Sometimes the best way to forgive is to start caring again." And in the grand, silent mansion across the garden, Janelle added the final line to her journal that night. "I don't know who that gardener truly is, where he came from or where he'll go, But I know this. Some languages need no words. A warm bowl of porridge, a light left on, a flower placed just right, all it takes. That night, she slept peacefully for the first time in months, not from exhaustion, but from a quiet, unshakable sense of peace. Saturday night in Newport. The sea had been restless since the afternoon, and now the wind roared so fiercely that the window panes rattled in their frames. People hurried to pull in their boats and board their homes along the coast. The radio warned, "A severe storm is approaching the east coast. Danger level high, stay indoors." Inside the Ashfield mansion, Janelle stood by the glass window, watching the lightning tear across the sky. Clouds churned above like dark waves, and she felt impossibly small, a woman 9 months pregnant, standing alone in a cavernous house where even the whistling wind through the cracks could make her flinch. She took a deep breath, whispering to herself, "Just one more night." The baby shifted inside her, a sharp movement that made her gasp. "Not yet, sweetheart. Wait till morning, and I'll call the doctor." But her body had its own plans. The first contraction came low and dull, then stronger, spreading up her spine in waves. She bent forward, gripping the chair for balance. Sweat dampened her temples. A dark red drop hit the floor. Panic surged. Her trembling hands fumbled for the phone. She dialed Blake, no answer. Then her mother-in-law. Then the hospital. Nothing but the endless, hollow ring. Outside, the storm howled. The pain hit again, sharper, deeper. She dropped to her knees, breath ragged. "God, please, not now." Thunder cracked so loudly the floor seemed to shake. A flash of white light filled the room, and then everything went black as the power died. Janelle screamed, "Help! Somebody, please." Only the wind replied. She crawled toward the front door, trying to open it, but her hands shook so badly she couldn't turn the lock. The pain tore through her again. She collapsed, clutching her belly. And then through the rain came the sound of pounding on the door. "Janelle, are you in there?" That voice. Low, firm, steady. She knew it instantly. "Jerry," she cried, hoarse. I'm not okay. It hurts." The lock splintered. The door flew open and the storm burst in wind, rain, curtains whipping. Jerry ran inside, soaked to the bone, his eyes fierce with worry. "You're in labor?" She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I can't reach anyone. Please help me." Jerry wrapped his coat around her without hesitation and lifted her into his arms. "Hold on to me." Rain lashed against them as he carried her to his old pickup truck idling by the gate. He strapped her in, slammed the door, and jumped behind the wheel. "Jerry, I'm scared." His eyes stayed on the road ahead. His voice was calm but firm. "No one's dying tonight. I promise." The truck roared into the storm. Rain hammered the windshield, the wipers working furiously but barely clearing a path. Streetlights flickered, power lines swayed, and branches broke and fell across the road. Jerry gritted his teeth, foot pressing harder on the gas. "Breathe, Janelle. Deep, slow breaths. It hurts. It hurts so much. I know. But stay with me. Look at me." He turned, hand steadying her shoulder. "Look at me. I'm right here." Lightning illuminated his face, drenched, intense, unyielding. And in that instant, through the chaos and noise, Janelle clung to the only thing that felt real, him. The truck skidded, tires losing grip. Jerry wrestled the wheel. Damn it, roads flooded. Water rose fast, slapping against the doors. He hit the accelerator, voice tight. "Don't close your eyes. Stay awake, Janelle. I can't breathe. Listen to me. You're not dying. I won't let you." He shouted over the thunder, every word a vow. The truck lurched through the water and finally stopped before Newport General Hospital, where the red emergency lights blinked through the downpour. Jerry flung the door open, lifted her again, and ran inside. "She's in labor. She needs help now." Nurses rushed over, guiding her onto a stretcher. He didn't let go until they pushed her through the delivery room doors. "You can't go in," one nurse said firmly. "She's alone," he answered hoarsely. "I'll wait right here." The door closed. The sounds of rain and the rhythmic beeping of machines blended into one long hum he'd never forget. Jerry sat on the hard bench, gripping the wet scarf still warm from her touch. From inside came the sharp voices of doctors. Heart rate dropping. "Move faster." He jumped to his feet, pulse pounding. Minutes stretched like hours. The monitor beeped, fell silent, then started again. A doctor burst through the door, breathless. "Are you family?" Jerry nodded hard. "She's losing a lot of blood. We need to operate. The baby's in distress." "Then do it. Save them." His voice cracked, hands clenched till his knuckles bled. The doctor nodded and ran back in. The doors swung shut once more. Jerry sat down again, head in his hands. Marianne's face appeared in the darkness behind his eyelids. Her bright smile, her hair caught in the wind. He heard her voice, soft and certain. "You couldn't save me, but maybe you can save someone else." He looked up at the red light above the door, blinking steadily. Time seemed to stop, and then suddenly a cry pierced the air. High, clear, strong. Jerry shot to his feet. The door opened, and the doctor smiled tiredly. "They're both safe. It's a girl." Jerry exhaled, his back hitting the wall as relief flooded through him. Rainwater and tears mingled on his face. "Thank God," he whispered. When they finally let him in, Janelle was lying pale but peaceful, her eyes glowing softly. She smiled faintly. "We made it." He nodded, voice thick. "You and that little fighter are tougher than I ever imagined." He looked down at the tiny bundle in her arms, small fingers curled into a fist, her breathing light and steady. A strange warmth spread through him, melting years of bitterness he hadn't known he still carried. "Do you want to hold her?" Janelle asked. He hesitated. I shouldn't. You saved her. You have the right to hold the miracle you helped create." He reached out carefully, cradling the baby in his calloused hands. She grasped his finger, her tiny hand impossibly soft and warm. His breath caught, tears falling freely now. 10 more minutes, the doctor said quietly. "If you hadn't brought her here, they wouldn't have made it." Jerry looked down at the little girl, whispering, "Do you know what you just did, little one? You saved your mother, and a man who thought he'd forgotten how to believe in anything." Beside him, Janelle murmured weakly, "You know, Jerry, maybe God didn't send you for revenge. Maybe he sent you to save a life." He lifted his gaze. Their eyes met hers, gentle and exhausted, his still glistening with stormlight. Outside, the rain softened to a hush, and in that fragile silence, they both understood. Fate had bound them together not by promises, but by the quiet heartbeat of a newborn child, sleeping peacefully between two trembling hands. Newport General Hospital, early morning. The recovery room smelled faintly of antiseptic and yellow tulips, the flowers Jerry had brought from the Ashfield garden. Morning sunlight filtered through white curtains, spilling softly over Janelle's hospital bed. Her skin was pale, but her breathing was steady, stronger than the night before. Jerry sat slouched in a wooden chair beside her, hands clasped tightly. He hadn't slept, not for a minute. The nurses had urged him to rest, but every time he closed his eyes, the images from the storm flooded back, blood on the floor, her scream, the thought that he might lose her. A nurse entered quietly, checking the monitors. "She's fortunate," she said gently. 10 minutes later, and we wouldn't have been able to save either of them. Jerry nodded, voice rough. 10 minutes. I won't forget that number. He looked toward the crib beside the bed, where the baby slept, tiny, pink-skinned, with a whisper of black hair. On that peaceful little face, he saw a light he hadn't believed in for years. Janelle stirred. Her eyelashes fluttered before her eyes opened slowly. Jerry straightened, leaning forward. "You're awake. How do you feel?" She smiled faintly, voice hoarse. "I've never felt so grateful to be alive." Her gaze drifted to the crib. "The baby, she's okay." "She's perfect," Jerry said, and for the first time, a genuine smile lit his face. A nurse came in with some papers. "Have you thought of a name?" Janelle looked at her daughter for a long moment, then whispered, "Lily." "Lily?" Jerry repeated softly. "The lily flower, symbol of purity. And hope," Janelle added. "I want her to grow up in the light, not like I did." When the nurse left, silence settled between them, broken only by the baby's even breathing. Janelle turned to him, her voice trembling. "If it weren't for you, Jerry, we wouldn't be here." He shook his head. "You don't owe me anything. I just did what had to be done. But no one else did. No one else stayed." Jerry lowered his eyes. He looked like a man still wrestling with ghosts in the pale light. "Janelle, you don't really know who I am. And maybe, if you did, you wouldn't be thanking me." She frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, then sighed. "Just that sometimes, the one who saves you is also someone who's spent years living with darkness." She studied him quietly before saying, Maybe. But even darkness needs a reason to return to the light. Their eyes met. For a moment, in that sterile room filled with the scent of flowers and the distant murmur of waves, two broken people realized they were learning to believe again. 3 days later, Janelle was moved to a private room. Jerry never left her side. Each morning, he brought fresh flowers and coffee for the nurses and helped her walk a few steps farther than the day before. He didn't talk much, but his presence said everything words couldn't. One afternoon, Janelle rested her head against the window frame, watching Lily sleep. "You know," she said softly, "I used to think I wasn't strong enough to be a mother." Gazing at the pale sky, Jerry replied, "And I used to think I wasn't good enough to save anyone." She smiled. Maybe God wanted us to learn both lessons together. A week passed. Janelle recovered faster than anyone expected. Lily fed well and cried often, but each cry filled the room with life. Thursday morning, she woke to find Jerry already there, coffee steaming in his hands. The sunlight caught on his shoulders, painting the floor in warm gold. "You haven't gone home yet?" she asked. "My home's wherever I'm needed more," he said. "Aren't you tired?" He smiled. "When I'm tired, I nap between nurse rounds. Haven't you seen me snoring in that chair?" She chuckled softly. "You always say so little, yet somehow you make people feel lighter." They fell into silence. Lily whimpered softly. Jerry stood and lifted her carefully from the crib, his movements gentle and sure. "You know how to hold a newborn?" Janelle asked, surprised. "No," he admitted, "but I learn fast." "How'd you learn?" "By watching. I used to grow seedlings. If you hold them too roughly, they break. Babies are the same, you hold them with gentleness." Something in his voice made her eyes sting. She watched him, this man who had once carried the weight of hate, now cradling life with reverence. For the first time, she saw not just the protector, but the healer, someone saving himself by caring for another. That afternoon, light rain tapped against the window. Jerry told her about the garden, that the roses had started blooming again after the storm. "You should come home soon," he said. "They're waiting for you." "And you?" "I'll fix up the guest house. I can make a small room for Lily. You'd let her stay there?" He nodded. "The mansion's empty now. And being alone isn't good for anyone." Janelle's eyes softened. "Jerry, you're too kind for your own good." He smiled faintly. "No, I'm just giving back what I once lost." That night, as he left the hospital, Janelle watched his figure through the window, tall, solitary, unwavering, melting into the rain and the glimmer of headlights on wet pavement. She pressed a hand to her heart and whispered, "Thank you, not just for saving me, but for reminding me that kindness still exists." Jerry couldn't hear her, but as he started the engine and glanced at the faded photo of Marianne on the dashboard, he whispered, "You see that, Mari? They made it. And maybe, for the first time, I'm not cold anymore." The last winter rain stopped 3 days after Janelle was discharged from the hospital. Newport was wrapped in a silken haze of sunlight, gleaming off the wet cliffs and shimmering shoreline. Jerry arrived in his old pickup truck, the back lined with a blanket and a few pots of flowers. Janelle cradled Lily in her arms as she climbed in carefully. She looked over, hesitant. "Are you sure this is okay? I don't want to be a burden." Jerry smiled, steady hands on the wheel. "You're not a burden. I'm used to having something to care for, even if it's only been plants." The truck rumbled along the winding coastal road, wind streaming through the half-open window. Janelle gazed out at the deep blue sea stretching endlessly ahead. For the first time in months, she didn't feel trapped. Jerry's cottage sat behind a ridge, surrounded by old pines and a garden slowly returning to life after the storm. The white-painted door was chipped. The porch creaked underfoot, but the warmth was immediate inside. "It's not as grand as the Ashfields' house," Jerry said, holding the door open, "but it's home." Janelle stepped inside, taking in the details: the worn wooden table, the quiet crackle of the fireplace, a small bookshelf filled with gardening guides, and an old photograph framed in fading wood on one corner. "You live here alone?" she asked softly. He nodded. 5 years now." He pointed toward a small adjoining room. "That one's for you and Lily. It faces the sea." She smiled faintly, clutching the baby close. Light from the window brushed across her hair and Lily's tiny cheek, and Jerry turned away, as if the warmth in that sight stirred something he hadn't felt in years. At first, Janelle did little but rest and care for the baby. Jerry handled everything else: cooking, laundry, cleaning, mixing formula. Surprisingly, he wasn't clumsy at all. Every move was patient, deliberate, as if he were tending to something fragile. In the mornings, he brewed coffee, turned on the old radio, and headed into the garden. The snip of his shears, Lily's soft cries, and Janelle's lullabies blended the quiet rhythm of a home being reborn. In the afternoons, when Lily slept, Janelle sat on the porch watching him work. "Don't you ever take a break?" she asked. "Plants don't," he said, trimming a rose bush. "So the gardener doesn't, either. Doesn't that get lonely?" He smiled faintly. "Sure, but loneliness is like rain sometimes needed, so the ground can bloom again." She watched him, her heart tightening with something unnamed. There was a peace about him that she hadn't known existed, an unspoken safety that came not from luxury but presence. At night, when Lily fussed, Jerry would take her gently, rocking her with that low, gravelly voice. "Hey there, little one. Uncle Jerry's here. Sleep, okay? Don't keep your mom up." Janelle smiled through her exhaustion. "You're good at that," he chuckled softly. "I've rocked others before, but this time, I want to get it right." She didn't ask who he meant. She could see in his eyes that some stories were still too heavy to speak. 15 days passed in a slow, healing rhythm. The small house became their quiet world: morning laughter, the scent of warm soup at night, and the sea breathing beyond the window. Janelle started writing again. Her first line read, "Some people don't come to stay forever, but if they arrive at the right moment, that's enough to change everything." On the 16th evening, the Newport sky turned golden orange. Jerry had just finished dinner cream of mushroom soup that filled the room with its rich aroma. Lily slept soundly beside the table. Janelle sat across from him, her hair loose, her face thin but radiant. "You know," she said, "I never thought I'd see the day when dinner felt like happiness." Jerry smiled. "Maybe because before, you ate just to get through the day. And now? Now you eat to live." They both laughed, but beneath the laughter was a silence heavy with everything unspoken. After dinner, Janelle stepped out to the porch. The ocean breeze carried salt and stillness. She sat quietly, feeling both calm and strangely restless. Jerry joined her, draping a blanket around her shoulders. "It's getting cold. Thank you." A pause. Then she asked softly, "Jerry, if I have to leave one day, how would you feel?" He was still for a moment, then said quietly, "I'd plant more flowers." "Why?" "So, I'd remember someone once lived here." Her throat tightened. She turned toward him. His gaze was on the sea, calm but distant. "You lost someone, didn't you?" He nodded. "My sister. She's the one in that photo." "Yes." "Marianne. She's why I learned to care for things and stop trusting people." Janelle's voice softened. "I think she'd be proud of you. You saved another woman. And her child." Jerry's jaw tensed. "I'm not sure she'd want me to save anyone, because the people who destroyed her were your family." The world seemed to go still. Even the waves hesitated. Janelle froze, eyes wide. "What? What did you say?" He drew a breath, voice shaking but firm. "Ashfield Corporation. They destroyed my father's company, took everything we had. My sister, she couldn't live with it. I came to Newport, not just to work in their garden, but to expose them. I swore I'd make them pay." Janelle stepped back. Her heart pounded not from fear, but from the shock that cracked the fragile peace they'd built. "So, you knew who I was all along?" "I did. And you still stayed, still cared because you wanted revenge?" "At first, maybe." His eyes glistened. But then, everything changed. She turned away, tears falling silently. "You lied to me." "No," he said quickly, voice breaking. "I never meant to hurt you, Janelle. I tried to hate you, but I couldn't. You're not like them. You're the only person who's made me want to live differently." She looked up, eyes wet in the fading light. "You mean, to live better?" "Yes. Before you, I only existed for vengeance. But now, for the first time, I want to be forgiven, even if it's only by one person." Silence thickened. From inside, Lily whimpered softly. Janelle turned and hurried in to soothe her, holding the baby close. Jerry stayed on the porch, eyes following them. His face was a mixture of guilt and grief, as though the truth had freed him and broken him at once. A few minutes later, Janelle returned. Her eyes were calm now, though still clouded with hurt. "You can leave if you want," she said quietly, "but I'm not sending you away. I need time to understand all of this." He nodded. "I'll be here, in the garden. Even if you hate me, I'll still be here." That night, the ocean wind turned cold again. Inside the small house, the lamp by the window cast a soft yellow glow where Janelle sat rocking Lily to sleep. Outside, Jerry sat alone on the porch, back against the wall, staring at the endless dark sky. He whispered, as if to the sister who lived only in memory, "You see that, Mari?" I finally told her. "And I think I'm more afraid of losing her than I ever was of losing my hate." 3 days had passed since the night Jerry confessed everything. Newport lay under the last scattered rains of the season, the sky a sheet of dull, heavy grey pressing down on the sea. Silence hung thick inside the small house by the cliffs like the breath before a storm. Janelle barely spoke. She fed Lily, cleaned, cooked, and folded clothes. Jerry rose before dawn, tended the garden, and set a cup of coffee on the windowsill at exactly 8 every morning, but neither said a word. They lived like two parallel lines, breathing the same air, hearing the same wind, yet never touching. Sometimes, when Janelle took Lily out to the porch, Jerry would stand in the garden below, eyes lingering on them far too long. She never looked back, but she always felt that pull, that unfinished something waiting quietly for a spark to bring it back to life. That spark came one Wednesday night. Jerry's phone buzzed a coded message lighting up the screen. He stood by the window, the pale glow reflecting on his face. Just one line. "Everything's ready. 7 a.m. tomorrow. Transfer the files. Ashfield will fall." His hand trembled. For 10 years, he had lived for this moment. Yet now that it was here, what he felt wasn't triumph. It was emptiness, like he was about to lose the only thing that had kept him breathing. The door creaked open. Janelle stood there, holding Lily. The soft light caught her face, tired, but calm. "What news are you waiting for?" "Just the end of something old." "Old?" He nodded. "Justice for my family." Her eyes didn't leave his, "and hell for mine." He said nothing. She stepped closer, her voice barely more than a whisper. "When it happens, when they lose everything, how will you feel? Satisfied or empty?" He didn't answer. The wind outside howled, shaking the windows. "Janelle," he murmured, "I'm not doing this for joy. I'm doing it because I can't live inside the past forever." "But if revenge is all you live for," she said quietly, "then you'll die with it when it's gone." He lowered his head. "Maybe you're right." She turned to leave, but paused at the door. "If you want to end it, Jerry, end it as a man, not as one of them." The door closed with a hard click. Jerry stood motionless, listening to the surf pounding against the cliffs. Then, under his breath, he whispered to his sister's memory, "Marianne, tomorrow I'll finally do what I should have done 10 years ago. But if anyone ever forgives me, I hope it's her." He didn't sleep. He sat by the window all night, watching the black sea swallow the moon, the rain counting the hours to dawn. Morning came grey, cold, thick with fog. Newport felt unnervingly still, as if the town sensed something irreversible would happen. Jerry wore a white shirt and a black coat, and combed his hair neatly. No longer the quiet gardener, he looked like a man walking toward his past. Janelle waited on the porch, Lily in her arms. She didn't bless him, didn't beg him to stay. She just looked at him with eyes deep and sad as the ocean. "You have to go?" "I do. They'll recognize you. I'm not hiding anymore." "Then promise me don't let the darkness pull you back. They've already taken too much from you." He gave a faint nod. As he turned to leave, Lily let out a soft cry. Janelle soothed her, but her hand trembled. The door closed behind him, leaving only the scent of cold coffee and the distant rush of waves. Ashfield Mansion, 10 a.m. Outside the gates, police cars and news vans crowded the drive. The sound of reporters shouting, boots on gravel, and camera shutters filled the air. Blake, Constance, Graham, and Adriana appeared in disarray. Officers handed out arrest warrants, seizure orders, and stacks of documents, proof of years of fraud, embezzlement, and financial crimes. The gate opened. A man in a black coat stepped through, shoulders straight against the wind. No one recognized him at first until he looked up. "Jerry?" Blake's voice cracked. "No. No way you're the gardener." Jerry stopped at the foot of the marble steps, his expression calm, almost too quiet. "Yes, I was your gardener. the one you ordered around, ignored, humiliated. But I'm also the man whose father your company destroyed. The name you erased from your records, Johnson. Constance stumbled back, her face turning ghostly white. Johnson. Oh dear God. Jerry tossed a thick folder from his coat at Blake's feet. In there is every piece of evidence you buried. Today, justice knocks. I'm just the one who opened the door. Police officers moved in. Blake resisted, shouting obscenities, but the clink of handcuffs drowned his voice. Constance didn't cry. She just stared at Jerry, her eyes dull like old stone. You think you've won, don't you? He shook his head slowly. No, I didn't win anything. I only took back what never should have been stolen. A reporter pushed through the crowd, microphone raised. Mr. Johnson, how does it feel to bring down the Ashfield empire? Jerry looked straight into the camera, voice low and weary. There's no joy in justice that comes too late, only sorrow for how long it took to believe it was possible. Then he turned and walked away, leaving behind the noise, the flash of cameras, and the ghosts of those who once thought themselves untouchable. That afternoon, in the cottage by the cliffs, Janelle held Lily as the television blared breaking news. Jerry's face appeared on screen somber, resolute. The Ashfield family was arrested in the largest financial scandal of the year. She touched the screen softly. You did it, she whispered. Tears welled not for the Ashfields, but for him. She knew that he had killed the last piece of darkness within himself by exposing it. When the door opened, Jerry stepped in, coat damp from mist, eyes red from sleeplessness. He said nothing. It's done? She asked. It's done, he murmured, sinking into the chair. But I don't feel lighter. She moved to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. Because justice always comes with loss. You won, but you lost the man you used to be. His voice broke. I don't even know who I am anymore. She looked at him tenderly. You're the man who saved me, who saved my child, and maybe saved his own soul. That's enough. She placed Lily gently into his arms. This is your new beginning, Jerry. If not for you, then at least for us. He held the baby, his rough hands trembling. Looking into her tiny face, he whispered, My little one, if you ever ask what justice means, remember this. It's not about making others fall. It's about learning how to rise. Outside, the Newport sea gleamed blue again, calm after the storm. In the small house by the cliffs, there was only the sound of Lily's soft laughter in Jerry's arms and Janelle's whisper, We've walked through the dark, Jerry. Now, let's finally live. 2 weeks after the Ashfield Empire's collapse, Newport had settled back into its quiet rhythm. But in the small cottage by the cliffs, normal meant something else entirely. The fragile stillness between two souls learning how to breathe again after surviving their storms. Jerry spoke even less these days. He no longer tended the garden every morning, but spent hours staring at the sea, as if holding silent conversations with ghosts carried by the wind. Janelle still cared for Lily, cooked, and smiled when needed, but in her heart, a quiet fear began to stir. Now that justice was done, would love still have a place to live? Jerry placed an envelope on the table before her on a grey afternoon. These are the papers for the Cliff Haven estate. I want to take you and Lily there. It's a place worth beginning again. Janelle looked up, surprised. Your villa? He nodded. Yes. I built it years ago, but never lived in it. Why not? Because it was built with money I earned from the shadows. It never felt like home until I met you. Her breath caught. Outside, the waves broke against the rocks, steady as the sea's heartbeat. You're not afraid I'll say no? She asked softly. You can, he said. But I hope you'll come. For Lily, for us. She held his gaze not with anger, nor complete forgiveness, but something fragile in between. Finally, she nodded. All right, I'll go. Cliff Haven appeared beneath a sunset of gold. The villa perched atop the cliffs facing the Atlantic, white walls, red-tiled roof, windows wide open to the wind. Jerry stopped the truck and opened her door. Welcome home. Janelle stepped out, holding Lily close. The air smelled of salt and lavender, mixed with the faint scent of new wood. Every corner of the house was elegant, yet somehow hollow. You ever stay here before? She asked. He shook his head. Never. I built it when I made money, but every time I came near, something felt wrong. Wrong? He smiled faintly. Because there was no one to walk inside with me. She brushed her hand along the smooth wall. The place was beautiful but cold, "Now there is," she said quietly. He looked at her for a long moment before smiling, tired, genuine, and warm. They ate dinner by the wide window, the ocean stretching endlessly. The sun dipped low, painting the room in amber. Lily slept in her cradle, and the two sat in silence that no longer hurt. Janelle sipped her wine. "Will you tell me everything?" Jerry set his glass down. "Tonight, yes, everything." She nodded, fingers lacing together beneath the table. And that night, under the roof of the house he'd built but never dared to claim, Jerry told his story. His parents' ruin, Marianne's death, the years on the road, living in shadows, building a faceless fortune from bitterness. He didn't cry. He spoke, voice calm, almost too calm. When he finished, Janelle sat silently, heart tangled with grief and disbelief. "You've gone so far, Jerry. I know. And now you want me to believe you've left it all behind?" "I have," he said, "because now I have something worth staying for." Her eyes glistened. "Do you know what I'm most afraid of?" "What?" "Loving someone I'll never truly understand." He was silent. Outside, the sea roared, waves crashing like the world was washing itself clean. He stepped closer and gently took her hand. "Janelle, I don't need you to understand everything about me. I want you to believe that from now on, I'll live for the good you showed me, which still exists." She looked up. She saw no darkness in his eyes for the first time, only peace. Days passed, and Cliff Haven began to feel like a real home. Jerry made coffee on the balcony in the mornings, while Janelle rocked Lily to sleep in the soft light. Life was simple, quiet, tender, full of the warmth both had forgotten how to hold. One afternoon, they walked along the beach. Janelle's bare feet sank into the sand, her dress fluttering in the breeze. Lily slept soundly in a cradle by their side. Jerry followed, a few steps behind, watching. "You know," she said, "when I was a girl, I dreamed of a place like this. Not big, not fancy, just somewhere with someone who meant it." Jerry smiled. "I used to dream the same. But I only now understand that home isn't made of walls. It's made of the person you let in." She turned to him. "And have you let anyone in yet?" He nodded. "Yes. And I hope you won't shut your door." They stood there, facing each other. The wind tangled her hair. The sea hummed around them. She placed her hand on his chest. "Jerry, I can't promise to forget the past, but I promise not to let it kill our future." He clasped her hand gently. "If you're here, I'll keep learning how to live not as a ghost, but as a man." They sat together until the sun sank beneath the horizon, saying nothing. The light turned red, spilling across the sand, coloring two hearts that had once been shattered. Night fell. The villa was silent except for the sound of waves. Jerry sat by the window, watching Janelle cradle Lily to sleep. The warm light cast a golden halo over her face, and he thought it was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. He whispered to the sister whose memory still lived within him, "Do you see, Mari? The roses bloom again, but this time they bloom for the light." Outside, the sea wind brushed through the rose bushes he had replanted with his hands, life rising where pain had once lived. When Janelle turned and smiled at him, Jerry knew. For the first time in years, he wasn't carrying the weight of the past. He was living, truly living in the present. She sat beside him, her voice low and tender. "Tomorrow, you'll teach me how to tend the flowers, won't you?" He nodded, taking her hand. "And you'll teach me how to love, won't you?" Janelle smiled. "I will. But this time promise me no more secrets." "There's nothing left to hide," he said, eyes on the quiet sea. Their shadows blended in the moon's silver light, and Lily's soft laughter came from the nursery, a slight, pure sound, like a blessing over their new beginning. Outside, the waves rolled gently to shore, carrying away the last ashes of the past. 3 months after moving into Cliff Haven, Janelle received a letter, a summons. The federal court was set to open its official trial for the Ashfield case, the scandal that had shaken the nation. In her hands lay evidence. In her heart, the wounds of the past are still raw. She knew this wasn't just a trial for justice, a trial for memory, freedom, and everything she once feared to face. The morning of the hearing, Jerry drove in silence. The road to the city was wrapped in mist. Lily slept in her car seat, her tiny breaths the rhythm of hope. Janelle turned to him and whispered, "You've waited for this moment your whole life, haven't you?" He shook his head, eyes fixed on the road. "No, the moment I've waited for is when you're no longer afraid of them." She smiled faintly, though her eyes glistened. The federal court of Newport loomed ahead, a grey monolith of power and consequence. Outside, reporters crowded the gates, cameras flashing like lightning. Police, lawyers, federal agents all in motion. And among them, one young woman strolled, holding her child, her face calm, her gaze unwavering. Inside, Blake sat in the defendant's chair, handcuffed, dressed in prison orange. Gone was the arrogance. What remained was an empty man. When Janelle entered, he looked up. For a moment, the world seemed to stop breathing. She didn't look away. She faced him, the man who had abandoned her in a storm, who had nearly cost her life and her child's. No hatred, no tears, just the quiet strength of someone who had finally survived herself. The trial began. The prosecutor read the charges: fraud, embezzlement, stock manipulation, bribery, falsified accounts, a decade of deceit laid bare. Jerry sat in the back row, silent. Beside him, Janelle held Lily, asleep in her cradle. When the judge invited her to speak, Janelle rose. One hand rested over her heart. "Your Honor," she began, her voice calm yet resonant, "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to prove there are things money can never buy: love, compassion, and justice." She told the story: the storm, the blocked calls, the family that treated her and her unborn child as disposable. Her voice never broke, but every word cut through the air like a blade. "My daughter breathes today because a stranger saved her mother from the hell her own father created," Janelle said, turning briefly toward Jerry. The light from the courtroom windows fell across his face, weary, humble, and full of quiet tears. "Justice doesn't make us happy," she went on. "It makes us awake. And I pray this awakening isn't just for me, but for everyone ever forgotten under the feet of the powerful." When she finished, the room fell silent. Even the most seasoned journalists hesitated to write, moved by something raw and human in her voice. Jerry bowed his head. For the first time, he understood justice wasn't only a verdict. It was mercy born from pain. Blake stared at Janelle for a long time. He didn't speak, but tears fell, not for the empire he'd lost, but for realizing too late that he'd already thrown away the one thing worth keeping. That afternoon, the verdict came. The Ashfields were found guilty, sentenced to years behind bars, their name forever stripped of its sheen. As Blake was led away, Janelle said softly, "I forgive you not because you deserve it, but because I deserve to be free." He stopped, trembling. No words came. He lowered his head and walked on. The courtroom slowly emptied. Janelle stood in the quiet, holding Lily. Afternoon light streamed through the tall windows, carving a golden line between her past and present. Jerry approached, wordless. He opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came. She looked at him, her eyes soft as tidewater. "It's over, Jerry. They've paid their price. What will you do now?" He smiled faintly, exhausted. "Maybe learn how to live. No more vengeance, no more hiding." She nodded. "You should. My daughter, she'll need someone like you in her life." He looked up. "Janelle." She turned, waiting. And then in the solemn hall of justice, before the murmur of those still lingering, Jerry went down on one knee. The room froze. From his coat pocket, he took out a small blue velvet box. Inside was a silver ring, simple, beautiful, unpretentious. "What are you doing, Jerry?" she gasped, heart racing. He looked up, his voice rough but steady. "Janelle, I'm not here asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for the chance to live my life, truly live it with you. I've spent half my life hating, but one person you made me remember how to love. This isn't a proposal born from debt or gratitude. Love only begins when a man dares to relinquish his hate." The room was utterly still. Janelle clutched Lily closer, tears falling freely now. "Jerry, here? Now?" "Yes," he said, smiling through his own tears. "Here, where justice was finally returned to those who were broken. Because here, I promise you'll never face the dark alone again." She stared at him for a long moment. In her eyes was the sea, the sky, every storm they had endured. Then she set Lily gently on the bench, stepped forward, and took his trembling hands. "Stand up, Jerry," she whispered. "I say yes." The courtroom erupted applause, camera flashes, soft laughter through tears, but none of it mattered. In that moment, only the two of them, eyes locked, hearts open, and a baby's soft giggle in the sunlight. As they left the courthouse that evening, the sky burned orange over the city. Janelle held his hand. Lily slept peacefully in his arms. She said quietly, "Today, we won justice. But more than that, we won ourselves." Jerry smiled. "Justice is light. But love is what makes us walk toward it." They walked into the sunset, their shadows melting into one. Behind them, the courthouse stood silent, its high windows gleaming gold, as if offering a quiet blessing to two souls who had finally found peace. Summer came to Cliff Haven, gilding the sea in sunlight. Waves tapped the cliffs in their steady rhythm, and inside the white villa, life moved like a soft, unbroken melody. Janelle brewed coffee while Jerry played with Lily on the porch. The child's laughter floated into the wind, blending with salt and the scent of roses. The house that had once been a monument to solitude now pulsed with life, the clinking of dishes, Lily's babbling words, Jerry's deep voice reading fairy tales aloud. Janelle watched them, heart melting, for this was something she once believed she'd never have again. A home without fear, only peace. One afternoon, Jerry led her into the garden. Beneath an arch of blooming roses, he planted a small plaque inscribed, "For Marianne and for the light she left behind." Janelle touched his shoulder. "She'd be proud of you, Jerry." He smiled. "If not for her, I'd never have learned what love is. If not for you, I'd never have known that love can save a soul." She leaned against him. "We were both saved, just in different ways." In August, they were married by the sea. No grand guests, no extravagance, only a few close friends, an old minister, and the waves serving as their choir. Janelle wore a simple white dress, holding a bouquet of roses that Jerry had grown himself. Lily ran in circles around them, her little dress fluttering in the wind. When Jerry slipped the ring on her finger, his voice trembled, but every word was clear. "I once promised myself I'd never love again, but today, I promise the opposite. I will love you like people believe in the sunrise, no matter how long the night." Tears shimmered on Janelle's cheeks. "I once thought happiness was something meant for others, but you taught me that even our scars can bloom if we dare to believe." The waves whispered gently. The minister smiled. "Love doesn't erase the darkness," he said. "It simply gives us the courage to walk through it." Their kiss was soft, real, and full of light. The photograph captured the wind swirling her veil, petals falling like blessings, and the smiles of three small souls beneath the vast, forgiving sky. That night, after Lily had fallen asleep, they sat by the window watching the sea shimmer under moonlight. Janelle asked quietly, "Do you still think about the past?" Jerry's gaze softened. "Sometimes, but it doesn't hurt anymore. I think of it the way people remember winter cold, but gone." "And the future?" He smiled. "I don't know what it holds, but I'm ready for anything if it has you and Lily." She took his hand, light as a bird's wing. "Then let's take it one day at a time." Time passed. Lily grew fast curls like her mother's, eyes bright and deep like her father's. One rainy morning, while Jerry helped her color a picture of roses, she called him Daddy for the first time. The word froze him. His eyes welled with tears. From across the room, Janelle watched, her heart full to the brim. On Marianne's Memorial Day, they brought flowers to the cliffs yearly. Janelle helped Lily fold her hands in prayer, while Jerry told her the story of a girl who believed roses were proof that beauty survives hardship. Lily asked, "Was she sad, Daddy?" He smiled, brushing her hair. "No, my love. She became light so I could find my way to you and Mommy." One autumn afternoon, Janelle was writing while Jerry read beside her, and Lily drew near the window. The sunset spilled honey gold across the room. Janelle set down her pen and said softly, "If someone asked me what happiness is, I'd say watching the person you love live peacefully." Jerry smiled. "Then I'm the happiest man alive." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box, the same ring from his proposal, now set with a fourth tiny stone. "I told you I'd add one for every day we chose each other, remember?" She laughed gently. "And this fourth one, who's it for?" "For the future," he said, "for all the days not yet lived, but already worth keeping." She clasped his hand, then held it tight. Jerry Johnson, the man who once lived for revenge, but chose to live for love instead. He kissed her forehead, whispering, "And you, the woman who taught me that kindness isn't weakness, but the only strength that can defeat the dark." Outside, the sea sang its endless hymn, no longer a cry of storms, but a lullaby of calm, a benediction for beginnings that never end. Janelle murmured. They once said hell wears the mask of heaven. But maybe, if love is strong enough, we can turn even hell into the place where light begins. Jerry smiled, eyes on the horizon. Yes, because justice may reclaim what's right, but only love can reclaim the soul. He wrapped his arms around Janelle and Lily. Together, they watched the sun melt into the sea. In that golden dusk, they were no longer the broken ones, but proof that the human heart can still choose the light even from darkness. And so they learned, justice can return the truth, but only love can return the soul. Thank you for walking with heaven in disguise, the hell within to its end. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment to share your thoughts on Janelle and Jerry's journey. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories of love, pain, and healing. Because somewhere in the following story, you might find yourself.